Let's talk about the wealth tax. It's got to be one of the most debated, but maybe least understood ideas in all of modern economics. On the surface, it seems simple, right? But its journey is full of twists and turns, and it all leads to a central mystery that we're going to try and unpack here. So here's the first piece of the puzzle, and it is a big one. When you poll people, a wealth tax on the super rich is incredibly popular. We're talking 60–70% of Americans are for it. And what's really wild is that this isn't just a partisan thing. Some polls show that over half of Republicans are on board. The idea is a slam dunk with the public.
And yet, it has never happened. Not once has a federal wealth tax become law in the United States. So you have this huge gap between what the public wants and what actually happens in politics. And that is the mystery we're going to unravel. Why does an idea with this much support always seem to hit a brick wall?
To figure that out, we need to get on the same page about what a wealth tax actually is. So let's break it down, look at the anatomy of it, using one of the most well-known recent proposals as our guide.
Okay, the most important thing to get is that this is totally different from an income tax. Your income tax hits your paycheck, the money you make each year. A wealth tax is different. It's a small annual fee on your total net worth, all your stuff, your stocks, your houses, your art, everything, after you subtract your debts. It's designed to tap into those giant fortunes that just sit there and grow, often without being taxed at all.
So let's make this real. A perfect example is Elizabeth Warren's Ultra-Millionaire Tax proposal. First, you have the threshold, and this is key. 99.95% of Americans wouldn't pay a single dime because it only kicks in on wealth over $50 million. Second, the rate. It was a 2% tax per year on wealth above that $50 million, with an extra bit for billionaires. And third, and this is the really interesting part, the enforcement, a massive 40% exit tax. That was designed to stop someone from just saying, okay, I'm no longer a U.S. citizen, and walking away with all their money. It's a simple idea, but boy, is it radical in practice.
Now, a common argument you'll hear is, well, they tried this in Europe and it was a total disaster. And yeah, there have definitely been some high-profile failures, but that's not the whole story, not even close. There are actually several countries where wealth taxes have been working just fine for decades.
Just look at the difference between France and Switzerland. It tells you everything you need to know. In France, they had high rates, they didn't enforce it very well, and you got all these stories about millionaires leaving the country. They eventually got rid of it. But then you look at Switzerland. They've had a wealth tax for over a century, with low, reasonable rates managed at the local level. And it coexists with one of the most prosperous economies in the world. So, the takeaway here? The problem wasn't the idea itself, it was the design.
And it's not just Switzerland. In Norway, the wealth tax is part of this powerful social contract. People see where the money goes. Free college, great healthcare, it's all tied together. In Spain, they use a flexible system where different regions can use it for their own priorities. So what's the common thread here? It seems like the successful ones aren't just seen as a tax grab. They're part of a trusted system that people believe in. Broad base, low rates, and high public trust. That seems to be the winning formula.
Okay, so if a wealth tax can work when designed properly, why is the opposition in the U.S. so fierce? Well, the counterattack is built on some very powerful and visceral fears of economic chaos and, of course, capital flight.
This quote right here from the Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association nails the #1 argument you'll hear against the wealth tax: capital flight. The fear is simple. The wealthiest people are also the most mobile. Why would they stick around to pay a new tax when they can just pack up their fortune, move to a country that doesn't have one, and that's that? The worry is you could end up losing more money than you gain.
And that fear is just one part of a four-pronged attack. First, you have the capital exodus we just talked about. Second is administrative chaos. I mean, how do you put a price tag on a Picasso or a privately held company or a complex offshore trust and do that every single year? It could be a bureaucratic nightmare. Third is the anti-innovation message, the idea that it punishes success and tells entrepreneurs not to bother. And finally, specific to the U.S., there are these big constitutional questions about whether the government is even allowed to tax wealth directly.
And, these aren't just political talking points. That administrative challenge is very real. In a pretty famous survey from the University of Chicago's Booth School of Business, a whopping 82% of economists, we're talking from all across the political spectrum, they all had serious doubts about whether you could actually administer a wealth tax accurately and efficiently in a country as large as the U.S.
So where does that leave us? We have a popular idea. We have some successful international examples, and we have some really serious practical questions. But if we stop the analysis there, we miss the real story. Because the reason a wealth tax has never passed in the US isn't just about spreadsheets and constitutional law. It's about politics, it's about power, and it's about persuasion.
And this, right here, is the heart of the whole thing. People who support a wealth tax tend to treat it like an economic debate. They show up with data, charts, and spreadsheets. But their opponents understand something crucial. This isn't a debate to be won. It's a political power struggle.
And history shows this incredibly clear pattern. In France, opponents defeated the tax by successfully branding it anti-business. In Sweden, they reframed the debate to make it sound like a threat to the middle class, even though it only affected the top 1%. And here in the US, as soon as Warren's proposal came out, it was immediately attacked with labels like socialism and class warfare. The attacks almost never engaged with the economic details. They were political theater designed to change the entire conversation.
This political playbook has been ridiculously effective. You've got one side bringing economic data and arguments about fairness to the fight, and the other side counters with fear, with culture war language, and with accusations of socialism. It's like one side is trying to win a formal debate, while the other side is laser-focused on controlling the media narrative and playing on public emotion.
And that is the ultimate strategy right there. Opponents figured out they don't actually need to win the argument on the merits. They just need to poison the well, make the conversation so toxic, so politically radioactive that a rational, calm discussion becomes completely impossible to have in the first place. And frankly, they've been very, very good at it.
So all of this leaves us with a question that goes way beyond tax policy. The fight over the wealth tax? It isn't really about dollars and cents. It's a battle over power, it's a battle over fairness, and really what the social contract in this country is supposed to be. It forces all of us to ask, in the richest country in the history of the world, how we make sure that all this prosperity actually serves our democracy instead of the other way around. That's the real puzzle we all have to solve.